Mark had always been the kind of homeowner who liked things smart, simple, and efficient. When the latest model of the smart water system hit the market, promising to cut down water waste and slash bills, he didn't hesitate. He ordered it online, installed it over a weekend, and programmed it from his phone like a pro. To Mark, it was a small upgrade that made sense. Nothing flashy, just modern living. But in this quiet suburban neighborhood, even the smallest changes rippled outward in unexpected ways. Across the street, behind the lace curtains of her meticulously maintained house, Linda watched. She had earned the dreaded nickname HOA Karen among the neighbors, though no one dared say it to her face. Her sharp eyes missed nothing. The new water system? It was a threat. Something about Mark controlling his own water didn't sit right with her. Linda was not just a neighbor, she was the unofficial watchdog of the HOA. She took rules seriously. Too seriously, some said, and enforcing them was her personal crusade. Her phone was already in hand, fingers tapping out a note in the HOA group chat. Mark's new system could disrupt the neighborhood. We need to act. Mark, meanwhile, was blissfully unaware of the brewing storm. His smart water system hummed. Quietly, its sensors adjusting watering schedules perfectly, detecting soil moisture, and conserving water better than any old sprinkler timer. The lawn looked greener, and his monthly bill dropped noticeably. Success, but peace was fragile in this neighborhood. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the streetlights flickered on, Linda stepped outside. Her heels clicked sharply on the sidewalk, a sound as deliberate as her thoughts. She crossed the street with purpose and stopped at Mark's gate. Mark opened the door, surprised to see her. "We need to talk," Linda said, voice cold and sharp. "That water system of yours, it's not allowed. It's messing with the HOA's watering schedule." Mark blinked, confused. "I didn't know I needed permission to save water." "It's completely automated and only waters my own lawn." Linda's eyes narrowed. "It doesn't matter. The HOA sets the rules. We have a schedule everyone must follow. Your system disrupts it. I suggest you turn it off." Mark's polite smile didn't waver. "Linda, I understand the rules, but this system is efficient and eco-friendly. I'm not breaking any laws." Linda's voice dropped. "This isn't about laws, it's about order. If you don't stop, I'll have the HOA board involved, and believe me, you don't want that." She turned sharply and strode away before Mark could respond. The words hung heavy in the air. Why was she so determined to stop him? Was it just about rules, or something else? As Mark closed the door, a chill crawled up his spine. This was more than a neighborly disagreement. Something deeper was brewing, something that could explode far beyond a simple water system. Across the street, Linda's fingers hovered over her phone. The HOA chat buzzed to life, neighbors picking sides. Some were curious, others wary. But Linda's message was clear. Mark must be stopped. And so, the quiet upgrade marked the start of a silent battle that would soon engulf the neighborhood and change everything. The morning after Linda's sudden visit, Mark found himself walking the neighborhood with a cautious eye. The usual, calm streets felt charged, like the air before a storm. Whispers floated from porches and neighbors shot curious glances his way. Mark had never wanted trouble, but trouble seemed to have found him anyway. He checked his phone. No messages from the HOA, no official complaints, yet. The weight of Linda's warning hung over him like a dark cloud. Later that afternoon, as Mark tended his garden, the sharp click of heels echoed from the sidewalk. Linda was back, her expression colder than before. This time, she didn't. "Wait for an invitation. You think you can just ignore me?" Linda's voice cut through the quiet afternoon like a blade. "I've already spoken to the HOA board. They're watching you." Mark straightened, setting down his gardening gloves. "I haven't broken any rules." "My system is legal and doesn't harm anyone," Linda's eyes flashed. Legal or not, it's against the community's interests. You're undermining the neighborhood's carefully planned watering schedule. What happens if everyone starts doing their own thing? Mark sighed, trying to keep the conversation calm. I'm trying to help reduce water waste. Isn't that what we all want? Linda's lip curled into a bitter smile. This isn't about water. It's about control. And you're stepping on the wrong toes. Mark's curiosity was piqued, despite the tension. Control? What do you mean? Linda leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Let's just say some of us keep this neighborhood running smoothly. You rocking the boat threatens more than your lawn. Before Mark could respond, Linda's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then fixed Mark with a sharp look. Consider this your last warning. Stop the system or I'll make sure the HOA takes official action. As she turned and strode away, Mark felt the unmistakable weight of a threat. This wasn't a simple neighborhood dispute. It was a battle for power. That evening, Mark called a close friend, Sarah, who had experience with HOA conflicts. He recounted Linda's threats and the tension building around the water system. Sarah's voice was calm but serious. Linda sounds like she's playing hardball. You'll need to document everything. Texts, conversations, anything. HOAs thrive on bureaucracy. If they want to push you out, they'll look for any excuse. Mark nodded, a plan forming in his mind. I'm not backing down, but I'll be ready. Meanwhile, across the neighborhood, Linda gathered with a small group of HOA loyalists in her living room, a map of the community spread on the coffee table. They pointed to every home with older watering systems, expressing concern that Mark's new technology could inspire a wave of unauthorized upgrades. If we let this slide, the entire neighborhood could lose control, Linda warned, eyes blazing with conviction. We have to set an example. As the meeting wrapped, Linda's phone buzzed again. She smiled coldly at a new message. 911 called. Water emergency at Mark's house. Her fingers hovered over the phone screen, ready to escalate the situation. The stakes had just been raised. The calm neighborhood was anything but peaceful now. With Linda tightening her grip and Mark standing his ground, the simmering conflict was about to explode. Mark's phone buzzed relentlessly that evening with messages from neighbors, some curious, others worried. Rumors about his smart water system spreading like wildfire through the tight-knit community. Whispers of disruption, chaos, and a brewing HOA scandal echoed behind closed doors. The neighborhood, once peaceful, now felt like a pressure cooker ready to blow. That night, Mark sat at his kitchen table, the glow of his phone illuminating data from the water system app. He could adjust flow rates, monitor moisture levels, and schedule watering times from anywhere. The technology was flawless, designed to optimize water use and avoid waste. But Linda's warnings replayed in his mind. You're stepping on the wrong toes. What did that really mean? Was this just about rules, or was there something more personal behind her fierce opposition? Days passed with little direct confrontation, but the tension thickened. Then, late one night, Mark received a message from an unknown number. Be careful. Not everything is as it seems. It was unsigned, vague, but unsettling. The next morning, Mark awoke to a strange sight. The neighborhood sprinklers, usually synchronized and orderly, erupted randomly. Water sprayed wildly across lawns and sidewalks, drenching flower beds and sending startled birds into flight. A cacophony of splashes echoed through the streets. Neighbors poured out of their homes, eyes wide with shock and suspicion. "What's going on?" one asked. "Is Mark behind this?" Mark rushed outside, phone in hand, frantically trying to regain control of his water system. But the app showed nothing abnormal, no commands or malfunctions on his end. Meanwhile, Linda stood on her porch, arms crossed, a triumphant smirk playing on her lips. "See? I told you this wouldn't end well," she called across the street. Your system's causing chaos." Mark shook his head. "I didn't do this. Someone's messing with the system." The neighborhood was split. Some defended Mark, trusting his explanation and the technology. Others, swayed by Linda's confident accusations, whispered dark suspicions. Behind the scenes, Linda sent a barrage of urgent texts to the HOA board. "Emergency," she wrote. "Mark's system is sabotaging the neighborhood. We need to act now." Mark, meanwhile, grew more determined. He began digging through system logs, searching for anomalies. Late into the night, he found something. A series of remote access attempts from an unrecognized IP address. Someone had hacked his system. The mystery deepened. Who would want to sabotage his system, and why? The next day, the neighborhood buzzed with nervous energy. The HOA planned an emergency meeting called to address the water crisis. Linda was ready, armed with complaints, neighbors' fears, and a burning desire to oust Mark. Mark arrived at the meeting prepared, clutching printouts of his water system's security logs and data. His voice was calm but resolute as he laid out the evidence of hacking and explained the technology in detail. But Linda was relentless. She interrupted, accusing Mark of hiding information and risking neighborhood safety. "How can we trust a system that's already out of control?" The room grew heated. Voices rose. Some neighbors demanded proof. Others took Linda's side without question. The fragile unity of the community fractured further. Amid the chaos, Mark's phone buzzed again, this time a text from the unknown number. "Look closer. She's not who she seems." The words sent a chill down Mark's spine. Suspicion twisted into a new question. Was Linda truly the protector of the neighborhood, or something else entirely? The war of wills had only just begun. The morning after the chaotic HOA meeting, the neighborhood was tense, as if holding its collective breath. Whispers followed Mark everywhere, from the local coffee shop to the grocery store. Eyes darted suspiciously whenever he passed, some filled with doubt, others with outright hostility. Mark tried to focus on his work, but the uneasy feeling lingered. His smart water system, designed to make life easier, had somehow turned into the center of a neighborhood storm. What had started as a simple upgrade was rapidly spiraling out of control. Then came the call that would change everything. From across the street, Linda was already dialing her phone with fierce determination. Her voice, cold and urgent, spoke rapidly into the receiver. "There's flooding at Mark's property. It's out of control. We need immediate assistance." The calm suburban street erupted into chaos within minutes. Red and blue lights flashed. As police cruisers and emergency responders arrived, sirens wailing and drawing a crowd of curious neighbors. People spilled out of their homes, smartphones in hand, filming every moment. Rumors buzzed like angry bees. "Water emergency! Mark's system has gone haywire!" HOA disaster. Mark stepped outside just as officers approached. His heart pounded fiercely, not from guilt but from frustration. "There's no flooding," he said firmly. "I've checked the data. My system's working perfectly." But Linda was already spinning her story to the arriving officers. "I called 911 because there's water everywhere. Sidewalks flooded. Gardens ruined. This is an emergency." The officers exchanged skeptical looks and began inspecting the scene. Neighbors watched anxiously as they examined the property. Mark pulled out his phone, showing real-time data from the smart system, moisture levels, valve statuses, water flow logs, all indicating normal function. One officer turned to Linda. "Ma'am, we're not seeing evidence of flooding here." Linda's face hardened. "You're not looking hard enough. It's the system. I'm telling you, it's dangerous." The atmosphere thickened with tension. The crowd murmured, divided between those supporting Mark's tech-savvy defense and others rallying behind Linda's dramatic claims. Suddenly, from the edge of the crowd, a young neighbor spoke up. "I was walking by earlier. I didn't see any flooding, just a little dampness near the sidewalk." Maybe a broken pipe? Linda's eyes narrowed at the interruption, but she quickly recovered. That's irrelevant. The water is out of control because of Mark's system. He needs to be stopped before things get worse. As the emergency team continued their assessment, a city water inspector arrived unexpectedly, summoned by a neighbor concerned about the flooding claims. She walked the property carefully, checking underground valves and the street's water mains. Minutes stretched like hours. Finally, the inspector cleared her throat. The flooding here isn't caused by the homeowner's irrigation system. There's a cracked underground pipe in the street, unrelated to any sprinkler or smart device. A stunned silence fell over the crowd. Mark let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. His phone buzzed again. A new message from the mysterious number. See? You're closer to the truth than you know. Linda's confident facade cracked for a moment, replaced by a flicker of panic. She glanced around nervously, realizing the ground beneath her accusations was shifting. The officers nodded at Mark and the inspector's findings. We'll need to report this back to the HOA, one said. For now, no action will be taken against your system. The crowd began to disperse, some nodding to Mark in reluctant respect, others whispering suspicions about Linda's motives. As the last police cruiser pulled away, Mark stood in the driveway, eyes fixed across the street at Linda's house. She was watching him too, her expression unreadable. The battle lines were drawn clearer than ever, and the next move was hers. The neighborhood was quiet now, but the storm of suspicion lingered like a low fog. Mark returned to his house, eager to prove the truth beyond any doubt. The inspector's findings had cleared his system, but the shadows of doubt still clung. To him, and more importantly, to Linda. Determined, Mark began gathering every scrap of evidence he could. He printed detailed logs from his smart water system, timestamps, flow rates, moisture readings, and the entire schedule he controlled from his phone. This wasn't just a device. It was a fortress of data designed to prevent the exact chaos Linda claimed. At the next HOA board meeting, Mark arrived prepared. The room buzzed with curiosity and tension. Many neighbors still looked at him with suspicion, their loyalty torn. Linda sat across the room, her eyes sharp and unblinking, ready to challenge every word. Mark took a deep breath and addressed the room. I want to be clear. My system did not cause any flooding or damage. Here are the records from the past week. He laid out the printouts, each one meticulously showing no irregular spikes or water waste. Every gallon of water used was measured, controlled, and logged. You can see the times and the amounts. Nothing unusual. Linda scoffed from her seat. Data can be manipulated. Who's to say these aren't doctored? The room tensed. Several board members exchanged wary glances. Linda's confidence was unnerving, but Mark knew facts had to win this battle. Suddenly, one of the neighbors, Mr. Thompson, stood up. I've been watching this closely. I live 2 doors down, and I can attest to Mark's lawn looking greener, and the water bills dropping. I don't think he's lying. Another neighbor nodded in agreement. Linda's accusations are causing unrest without proof. Linda's face flushed with frustration, but she held her ground. We're protecting the community from potential hazards. If Mark's system isn't the problem, then what is? The room fell into murmurs, the question hanging in the air. That night, Mark's phone vibrated again. A message from the unknown number. Look closer. Not all threats come from the obvious. The words gnawed at him. Driven by the cryptic hint, Mark began reviewing security camera footage from his property. He noticed something strange. On the evening before the flooding rumors, a shadowy figure lingered near the water meter, fiddling with the valve box. The figure wore a hoodie, face obscured. His heart raced. Could Linda be involved in something more than accusations? The next day, Mark discreetly spoke with a neighbor who lived nearby and had a clear view of the street. The neighbor hesitated but eventually admitted, I saw Linda outside late that night near the water meter. It seemed odd. like she was up to something. Mark's mind spun. Was this the real reason Linda was so determined to blame him? Had she tampered with the water system to create chaos and force him out? The following HOA meeting was intense. Mark presented the camera footage and the neighbor's testimony. Linda's confident demeanor faltered. "This is hearsay and circumstantial," she snapped. But the room was no longer so sure. Whispers of doubt about Linda's role grew louder. Some neighbors began questioning if the real threat to their community came from inside the HOA itself. As the meeting ended, Linda's eyes locked on Mark with a chilling intensity. "You haven't heard the last of this," she hissed under her breath. Mark watched her leave, a sense of both victory and unease washing over him. The battle was far from over. After the explosive HOA meeting, the neighborhood's uneasy calm felt more like a fragile ceasefire. Mark's evidence had shaken the community's faith in Linda, but the shadows of her determination lingered like a storm, threatening to break. Mark couldn't shake the feeling that something else was going on beneath the surface. Linda's fierce opposition, the strange hacking attempts, and the sudden 911 call, it was all too calculated, too precise. It wasn't just about a watering system. Late one night, Mark sat in his living room reviewing security footage again. His eyes caught a flicker near the street, a figure slipping into Linda's yard after dark. The person moved deliberately, careful to avoid the lights. Was Linda meeting someone? Or worse, was she working alone? He decided to investigate discreetly. The next afternoon, Mark struck up a conversation with one of the newer neighbors, Jenna, who was known for her friendly nature and keen observations. Over coffee, he casually mentioned the water system drama. Jenna's expression darkened. "Linda's not what she seems. I've heard whispers from some neighbors. She's been pressuring homeowners to conform, but also pushing for big development, plans behind the scenes, things no one knows about." Mark raised an eyebrow. "Development plans?" Jenna nodded. "Rumors say Linda has connections with a developer who wants to buy several properties for a luxury project. The more control she has over the HOA, the easier it'll be to push through." Mark's mind raced. If Linda was behind this, the water system fight was a smokescreen. Disrupt him, scare others into compliance, and clear the way for her plans. Determined to uncover the truth, Mark turned to the HOA's public records online. Hours of searching revealed a paper trail of strange meetings, hastily approved permits, and unusual communications involving Linda and a local developer. But the smoking gun was an email Mark found, accidentally copied to him in a recent HOA newsletter. It was from Linda, detailing plans to neutralize obstacles and secure the neighborhood's future with the developer's backing. Mark's heart pounded. This wasn't just about water. It was a power grab with high stakes. That evening, Mark decided to confront Linda directly. He walked across the street, the sun dipping low and casting long shadows. Linda answered the door, her eyes narrowing suspiciously. "I know about the plans, Linda," Mark said quietly. "The emails, the meetings. You're trying to force a development on this neighborhood." Linda's smile was cold and calculating. "Careful, Mark. You're playing with fire." "I'm just trying to protect the community," Mark replied firmly. "Why sabotage me? Why the lies and threats?" Linda's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because you're the last obstacle. Once you're out, everything will fall into place." Before Mark could respond, a loud crash startled them both, glass shattering from a nearby window. They turned to see a figure running down the street, disappearing into the twilight. Linda's eyes flicked to Mark. "This isn't over." Mark knew she was right. The war was escalating and the stakes were higher than ever. The night air was thick with tension as Mark paced in his living room, replaying the confrontation with Linda over and over in his mind. Her words, "You're playing with fire," echoed ominously. The shattered glass, the fleeing figure. It was no coincidence. The war for the neighborhood was no longer subtle. It was a full-blown battle. Mark knew he had to act fast. The next morning, he organized a neighborhood meeting at the local community center, inviting every homeowner to attend. He needed to expose Linda's scheme before more damage was done. Flyers went up on lampposts, and word spread quickly through the block. As neighbors gathered, the atmosphere buzzed with curiosity and unease. Mark stood at the front, a projector set up behind him, ready to lay out everything he had uncovered: emails, meeting minutes, and the suspicious developer connection. "Thank you all for coming," Mark began, voice steady but urgent. "There's been a lot of confusion and fear surrounding my water system, but that's only the surface. Behind the scenes, Linda has been working to push through a development plan that would drastically change our neighborhood without our full knowledge or consent." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Mark clicked through the slides, showing proof of Linda's secret meetings and plans. She's used intimidation, false accusations, and even sabotage to try and force compliance. Voices rose, some skeptical, some angry. A woman in the back shouted, "Why would she do this? What's in it for her?" Mark's gaze swept the room. "Power and profit. If the development goes through, many of our homes could be sold off or drastically changed. Linda stands to gain from this." The room grew heated, but Mark pressed on. "We need to come together, stand united, and demand transparency from our HOA." Just as he finished, the doors burst open. Linda stormed in, face flushed with fury. "Enough!" she yelled, her voice sharp and commanding. "You're spreading lies and division. This neighborhood belongs to all of us, and I won't let anyone sabotage our future." Tension exploded. Some neighbors sided with Linda, accusing Mark of stirring trouble. Others shouted back, demanding answers. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. Panic erupted briefly until emergency lights clicked on. Amid the chaos, a loud crash sounded at the back of the hall. Mark's heart pounded as the crowd pushed toward the noise. There, sprawled on the floor, was the developer Linda had been secretly working with, caught trying to sneak out a door with stolen HOA documents. Gasps and shouts filled the room. The developer scrambled, but several neighbors blocked his path until the police, called earlier by Mark's friend Sarah, arrived to take him into custody. Linda's face paled, and she sank into a chair, speechless for the first time in weeks. Mark felt a surge of relief and resolve. The truth was out. The neighborhood had witnessed the hidden game Linda had been playing. As the police led the developer away, the room buzzed with new energy. Neighbors started talking, forming plans to reclaim their HOA and protect their homes. Mark knew the battle wasn't over, but this was the turning point. He glanced at Linda one last time. Her eyes met his, filled with something he couldn't quite place: defiance, regret, or perhaps fear. The war for the neighborhood's future had reached its tipping point. The community center was abuzz with relief and excitement after the dramatic showdown. Mark stood amidst a gathering of neighbors, faces lit with hope and determination. Linda's scheme had been exposed, and the developer was in custody. For now, the neighborhood was safe. Yet, as the crowd celebrated, Mark couldn't shake a lingering unease. The mysterious messages from the unknown number, the hacking attempts, the shadowy figures. Something still didn't add up. That night, as the neighborhood quieted, Mark sat alone in his study, scrolling through his phone. His eyes caught a new message from the mysterious sender. "You've won the battle, but not the war. Watch your back." Mark's pulse quickened. Who was this shadowy figure? A friend or a foe? Suddenly, a soft knock came at the door. Mark opened it to find Jenna, the friendly neighbor who had helped him uncover Linda's secret. She looked worried. "Mark, you need to see this." Jenna handed him a USB drive she'd found hidden behind a loose brick near Linda's porch. "I don't know what it is, but I think it's important." Mark plugged the drive into his laptop. A series of encrypted files appeared. With some effort, he decrypted them to reveal something shocking. Linda was not acting alone. A shadowy group tied to larger real estate interests had been pulling strings behind the scenes, manipulating HOA boards across multiple neighborhoods to facilitate aggressive developments. His own neighborhood was just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. The files included correspondence, financial transactions, and plans to expand their control further. It was a conspiracy far beyond Linda's ambitions. Mark realized he had stumbled upon a much darker network, one that would not stop until every inch of the city was under their control. As he sat back, the weight of the revelation hit him. His water system, the 911 call, the sabotage. It was all a small part of a larger war for control. He looked out the window toward Linda's house. She was gone. Mark's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a call. The number was unknown. He answered. Cautiously, a calm, measured voice spoke. You're smarter than we thought, Mark, but knowledge is dangerous. Choose carefully what you do next. Before Mark could respond, the line went dead. He knew one thing for sure. The fight wasn't over. It had only just begun. But this time he wouldn't be alone. Mark's next move would determine the fate of not just his neighborhood, but the entire city. The end, or a new beginning?